Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our second class of Buzz Week here in Seattle. I am Amy from Seattle Cocktail Club. A lot of you know me, and I am joined today by Jason Clark, who also goes by JC, and he is going to teach us how to create the perfect coffee cocktails. Jason, welcome.
Hi, Amy, and hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me and for tuning in today.
Before we get started, I'm going to give everybody a little bit of ground rules for today's session. Basically, we are here to answer all of the questions that you might have around making coffee cocktails. So as JC is going through all of these delicious cocktails that he's going to demonstrate today, please put every one of your questions in the chat. We will get to them. We will end with a Q&A. And Jason's the author of The Art and Craft of Coffee Cocktails. I'm going to put a link to where you can pick up a copy of it in the chat. He has been in the drinks industry for 23 years, has some titles, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've made a few drinks and won a few competitions in my time.
Okay, so without any further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you. I'll be monitoring the chat for questions, and I'll let you take it from here.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Brilliant. All right, guys. Well, yeah, as I say, thank you so much for having me and thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm coming to you from London. So it's cold and miserable here. We're in full lockdown here. All the bars are closed. So I'm really excited to be connecting with you all over there in the US and in Seattle. So the plan for today is I just really want to inspire you around the category of coffee cocktails, motivate you to get more experimental and mix your own different creative coffee cocktails. And also when you are out in bars, to be able to hit up your local bartenders, baristas, and challenge them to be, I guess, exploring the incredible category that is coffee cocktails. Amy mentioned my book, so I guess that's how I was found. So this is it here, The Art and Craft of Coffee Cocktails. This came out late in 2018. It was nominated as a top 6 new book at Tales of the Cocktail in 2019, which was pretty cool. It is 208 pages, full color, full of beautiful cocktails, which I'm going to show you many of today. It's got all the measurements there and ounces and whatnot, but it gives you an overview of the coffee category, so you can learn just more about coffee, so you feel more confident in that aspect in terms of there's timelines that show the history of coffee. It shows you how coffee is produced, how it reaches your cup, different styles, what coffee to buy, different flavors of coffee. There's some incredible coffee encyclopedias out there, and I couldn't go too deep into that side, but the idea is it can give you enough knowledge to then move on to the cocktail side and start getting some incredible results of creative, delicious flavors and flamboyant sort of drinks, really. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask the team to please share the screen, and I'm going to be a thumbnail for most of this as I take you through some amazing imagery. Amy, can you confirm that the screen's shared? Cool, great, thank you. So there we go. There you go. There's the cover, front and back covers there. I should have mentioned I am on Instagram. If you want to get more coffee cocktail inspiration or just bartending stuff in general, I'm at drinksgeek or drinks_geek. That's the book. So we'll move on to the next slide, please. A golden era of coffee culture. Now, I think it's really exciting times because we're in a golden era, both for the world of cocktails, but also for coffee. Coffee is absolutely booming. In the US, you guys are huge consumers of coffee. I think it's you're one of the largest consumers per capita. And it's a really exciting time. Baristas particularly are exploring different qualities, different methods of production, of getting, interesting coffee into your hands. That's exploded in the cafe scene, of course, started many years ago, 20, 25 years ago. And things like Starbucks, but now we're getting all these really cool, quirky cafes and roasteries producing incredible cups of coffee. And that's, for me, I've worked in the industry over 23 years and at times dabbling as a barista, and more so, but more so in the bartending world. So I really wanted to bring these worlds together and push some boundaries and see where we could go with it. So we'll go next slide, please. This one here, we've got the infamous Espresso Martini and the Irish coffee. These are probably arguably the two biggest coffee cocktail serves in the world. Recently, Drinks International listed the Espresso Martini as the 6th most popular cocktail in the world. Places like New Zealand and Australia, it's the #1 biggest selling cocktail, which is pretty incredible. I'm not sure where it is specifically in the US, but I'm sure you guys are downing plenty of these as well. The Irish coffee, of course, been around for a very long time. It's something that sort of fell off people's radar for quite some time. It's like you sort of take it for granted, but bars like Dead Rabbit have really helped to bring a resurgence in its popularity, and it's just such a delicious, beautiful, silky smooth drink. I'm a huge fan of a good Irish coffee. Next slide, I've got a couple of images here. One that you might be familiar with. We've got the frozen Irish coffee from Erin Rose in New Orleans. For those of you that have been to Tales of the Cocktail or haven't yet, put it on your bucket list. Get to New Orleans and pop into Erin Rose and get one of their infamous frozen Irish coffees. They are absolutely beautiful and great in that sticky hot weather you get down there. And then on the right hand side there, of course, we've got the black and white Russian. They've also been around for a very long time. They're drinks that we sort of think it's pretty standard. We use your basic coffee liqueur like Calada or Tia Maria with any old vodka and topped with cream or milk. But now I'm starting to see some really exciting iterations of those using great different types of coffee and different products. So that's a drink we'll see develop over the years to come, I think. So those four for me have been the real standouts. And you go to most bars and that's often all you'll see on a menu is something along these lines, or maybe a mudslide or maybe a tiramisu cocktail. Often just very, very limited in choice. But if we roll to the next slide, I just think this is a great indicator of just a glimpse at coffee variety. And the top of the slide there, we've got different green coffee beans. So you can see the difference in size and color and shape, the little details in those, and this is just a minute scope of that, because of course there's thousands of different varieties of coffees and grown in different farms and different conditions, different altitudes. And then of course the way that the coffee is processed. And of course then when it gets to the roaster, how that coffee is roasted, whether it's really, really light, giving you delicate, more citrusy, tropical, floral notes, through to your really dark, rich, oily, classic Italian roast with your rich sort of chocolatey notes and toasted nut characteristics. So coffee really is more than just one flavor. We often just think, any old coffee will do, and coffee's coffee. But, I urge people that are interested in the topic to explore and find coffees that you really like and enjoy. And then if you want to mix it in different ways, you start experimenting with the flavors that you take from, brewing that cup. And even brewing it in different ways is obviously going to give you different results. If you're, say, doing espresso or a pour over or filter, or, it's a wonderful world of incredible flavors. And there is actually, I haven't got the slide here, but there's a flavor wheel, which is shows the diversity of flavor within the category. It's just huge. Tropical fruits, stone fruits, red berries. We've got herbal notes. You've got vegetal notes. You've got umami notes can come through. Of course, chocolate, spices, nuts. There's just such a plethora of different flavors that can be drawn out of coffee. So that's sort of my quick fire coffee intro. Hopefully that's got everybody thinking already. And next we're going to move into, on the next slide, I've got my first cocktail that I'm going to touch on here. So this is called Milk and Cookies. Well, sorry, in the book, I broke up the different chapters into shaken, hot, built, stirred, and blended, and then batched ingredients. So big batching, pre-batched cocktails or ingredients. And I just think in the book it goes from easy to difficult. It gets more and more complex as you go through. So what I've got is we're going to go through about 20 drinks of the 75 recipes that are in the book, and just give you some. I just want you to get really inspired today about the opportunities there are. So this one here, Milk and Cookies, really, really simple. Whiskey or bourbon whiskey, coffee. We've got a golden sugar syrup and then some form of milk, shaken. This is a pretty fancy looking serve, but I drink this sort of serve all the time. When I was writing the book, it'd be my you're writing about cocktails and coffee, you start to get thirsty. So I'd head down to the kitchen and I'd whip up something like this really, really easily. Just, it doesn't even necessarily have to be whiskey, but whiskey and coffee is just such a great pairing. A golden or a demerara sugar. Could use oat milk, almond milk, dairy milk, whatever sort of does it for you, really. Sometimes you'll need to adjust ratios, depending on the strength of the coffee or the strength of the whiskey you're using. The sweetener is just to add a little bit of mouthfeel and texture. And this can be shaken in a cocktail or even built into a bottle like that, shaken like that, and drunk directly from the bottle. I found is really tasty. But really, really simple, cool little serve, and something I recommend people try at home. Now, the next cocktail is very, very similar to that in a way, actually. It's basically that without the milk element. This was inspired by a trip to Cuba I did a few years back. And, when you're in Cuba, what do? You wake up, go for a walk. Before you know it, you're having coffee, having a cigar, drinking some rum. You might have there's different sweets and chocolates and things. And so I sort of designed this by that sort of experience. When I'd come home from Cuba, I'd sit on my balcony and have some coffee, rum, touch of chocolate, a little bit of sweetness there, and worked really well with smoking a cigar or not. But short, simple, punchy, delicious. It's essentially, it's almost like an espresso martini, but just reconfiguring the structure of it in a way. So that's a simple recipe I really recommend. Moving on to the next drink. This is called Clash of Stags. This was inspired by wanting to do a more sort of masculine espresso martini. So while at first glance this looks nothing like an espresso martini, but essentially you've got whiskey replacing vodka in combination with Jägermeister, believe it or not. But the spices in Jägermeister can work really, really well with coffee. I've got a Vanatillin is an orange vanilla liqueur, or you could use Cointreau or Grand Marnier, and cold brew coffee, a little bit of spice. This gets shaken hard in a shaker over ice, and we strain it into a rocks glass that actually has a little splash, 15 mils of cola, and the cola reacts with the coffee, gives you that beautiful texture and foam. And cola, the flavors of cola actually work really well, obviously, with whiskey, with Jaeger, with the coffee, and this is like a butch espresso martini in a way in that rocks glass. And that dusting you can see on the top is a little bit crazy, but that is a blend of cinnamon, cacao, so chocolate dust, and star anise, and I dusted that heavily over the top. And as the effervescence from the coffee and the cola, it starts to sort of create this amazing bubble effect on top of the drink. Star anise in the middle, the flaming pine cone, a little bit of theatre really, but the smoky flavors, it made me think of sort of you know, it's sitting in a cigar lounge having coffee and whiskey and just getting that little waft of toasted pine cone on the side. That's obviously very optional, but a really, really cool drink. I think it shows some of the diversity of branching away from just that classic espresso martini. I could have done this book. I could have done 100 espresso martini recipes, really, but you know, I wanted to show a lot more diversity than that. And so there's not really anything in this book other than the classic that really conforms to that classic espresso martini. This one here, also shaken. It's one of my favorite drinks. So we've got a golden rum, cold brew coffee once again, toasted chia seed and blackberry syrup. The chia seed gives it this lovely little nuttiness, but it's not, as you know, you don't necessarily need that. You could just go with a blackberry syrup or blackberry liqueur. The berries worked really well with the style of coffee I'd used in this drink, which was like a chocolate and red fruits coming through in the coffee. Chocolate bitters, Ango bitters, shaken. We've got dark chocolate and blackberries on top, little gold leaf coming over that one over ice. This one, sweet, you know, it's berries, coffee and rum, a little bit of spice coming through. Really, really delicious. I do variations on this recipe all the time. Sorry, I'm not going to go into every detail on specs on these drinks. I just don't have time, but obviously you can read away there on screen, take notes if you like. And of course, if you really want to dig into these drinks, then you're more than welcome to go out there, get online and place an order for the book, which is available on Amazon and a variety of other places there in the US.
We'll share a link out for where they can get the book, and also a copy of what we are recording today. So if you want to go back and look at those slides so that you can make it at home. We had a couple of questions come in. Cool. Somebody's mind was blown over adding rum to coffee cocktails. And I think that so often we think of coffee cocktails as espresso martinis, and vodka and whiskey are like the spirits of choice there. So I've gotten even a personal message that was like, rum and coffee sounds delicious. Why hadn't I thought of that? Someone asked, what is your favorite aged Cuban rum?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm a whiskey guy nowadays, but I grew up on rum. I used to own a tiki bar, actually. My favorite, I'm a big fan of Santiago de Cuba. They do a 12-year-old, which is exceptional. Yeah, I've got a saying with most spirits, like a whiskey, I say there's no such thing as a bad whiskey. It's just maybe one you don't like. And it probably goes for rum really as well. I'm open to anything. And then once again, it depends how you're drinking it. Some spirits aren't necessarily great to drink neat on their own, but you mix it with some other flavors that help it grow, and it can work into a work of art. But yeah, I love Santiago de Cuba. Havana do some incredible rums as well. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Does the type of liquor to mix with coffee change depending on if it's hot or iced?
Not really. Whenever I'm designing any sort of drink, what I'm going to do is taste the ingredients. So in a coffee drink, I would brew the coffee, taste the coffee, and start thinking what's going to work well with that. Is it a really light brewed coffee with light, delicate flavors? So I want to use a lighter spirit that won't overpower it. Is it a really punchy, full, heavy coffee that needs a pungent spirit to stand up to that? So no, I don't think it matters between hot or cold. It's about the flavors and the ingredients themselves.
Gotcha. And then you had touched on espresso martinis, which happen to be like my favorite cocktail ever because they can vary so much. We live in Seattle. It's the home of Starbucks. It's like the coffee capital of the United States. It is pretty difficult to find an espresso martini on a menu here.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's part of the reason that we put Buzz Week together, is we wanted to share how great coffee cocktails can be. And It's quite surprising that we don't have more of a espresso martini culture.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't realize that at all. I didn't put a slide up on this presentation because I figured it is in many places it is so popular. But in the book here, I've got the full explanation of the history, how it was created, by who, where, when, the original name of it, and then we've got a breakdown of the recipe there as well. So yeah, if you want to that's definitely a great place to start in your coffee cocktail journey, is start with these classics that I've already showed. And then you can start changing little parts of those as you get more creative.
Yeah.
All cool. Right. Any more? That's it for questions for now?
That's it for questions for now.
Right. Well, we're going to, back on the slides, we're going to move on to the next drink, which is called Beats by Jay. And if rum in a cocktail blew your mind, then this one's going to go to the next level, I would say. So this drink I wanted to showcase that coffee doesn't always need to be the main flavor. So, Irish coffee, espresso martini, unmistakable, the color, the texture, the smell, the thickness, it's all about the coffee. But we can use coffee as a more subtle ingredient. So here I've only used 15 mils or half an ounce. We've got a blended Scotch and Drambuie, which is like a honeyed Scotch herbal liqueur. We've got beetroot juice. So just 1 ounce of beetroot juice, lemon juice, egg white, and hibiscus syrup as the sweetener. So this is basically a whiskey sour with honey and herbs from the Drambuie, and then this real earthiness of the beetroot, and the hibiscus helps balance it out with a little floral note there as well. Beautiful color, obviously. It's incredible texture, and the coffee is just this underlying level that works in nicely with the beetroot and the whiskey. I can't see anyone's faces, but I'm imagining a few people going, WTF? But yeah, I've had some great success with this. I'd use this drink when I do guest shifts and things, and it's a real surpriser, but it's a beautiful and delicious serve. And you can remove beetroot and just go more with berries and switch that and just use raspberry, like a raspberry puree works really well. We might get some questions on that one later, I expect, but we'll move on to the next drink, which is the Tiramisu Gelato. So the tiramisu is obviously an incredible dessert, but it's for many years been a cocktail that bartenders play with and have on menus. I'm not sure about in Seattle, but the coffee culture in New Zealand is huge. These really boomed in the sort of late 90s. You'd find tiramisu, with creme de cacao, coffee, and brandy, and cream shaken up in different bars. And this is my version, which takes it to another level using a VS cognac. So it's the cheapest cognac. Cold brew coffee once again, Bailey's, coffee liqueur, and chocolate bitters. And then you can see the glass there it's actually been sprayed with creme de cacao, so chocolate liqueur, and then dusted in chocolate powder. Like you'd often get that dusting on a tiramisu dessert, and it just really, make for a beautiful drink. But this is then topped, the garnish there, we've got a ladyfinger biscuit, and we've got a scoop of tiramisu ice cream in this, just to make it extra naughty. Doesn't necessarily need the ice cream, but it's sort of pushing the boundaries and taking it that step further. This is the ultimate after dinner dessert cocktail. If you're entertaining or you're in lockdown and you're with your family and you want to surprise them with a special dessert serve, then this is the one. You pull this out after dinner and wow, you're in the good books for a while, I'd say. We'll move on to the next one. This is the first hot cocktail that I'm featuring. This is a drink called the Kentucky Coffee. And this is essentially just an Irish coffee But I made this in a bar in New Zealand back in 2013, 13 or 12 or 13. And I moved to a couple of different bars. I went on different menus. There's a bar still now in New Zealand that has this on the menu every winter. So that's like 7 years later. And this drink used to come out and people would see it and go, wow, I want that, the hot espresso martini served in the coupe glass. We're swapping Irish whiskey for bourbon. We've got a little touch of chocolate in there. We've got espresso coffee, maple syrup instead of typically with an Irish coffee, you're just using white sugar, and then chocolate bitters. And this serve, the clever thing we did is we put all those ingredients into, I'm holding in front of the screen now, like a milk frothing jug. And we would steam it on the steam wand like you would when you're making a cappuccino with the milk. So you'd heat it with the steam wand, pour it in the glass, layer it with a cream, which has got a little bit of butterscotch liqueur in it. And then the chocolate on the side, we just take a lighter, flick the lighter on it and stick it to the side of the glass. Dust on top, comes out hot, cold, maple, bourbon, coffee. Oh, I'm getting salivating just thinking about it. It's a really, really tasty drink and it actually really easy. If you don't have a steam wand, of course, you could just make a hot pot of coffee, add the other ingredients, pour that in your glass and layer with the cream. Moving on to the next hot drink. This is a Mocha, so coffee and chocolate. I just sort of got inspired by I've never been to Canada, but my sort of thoughts of Canada is, I guess Vancouver in the wilderness, camping and bears and things. And I just got this sort of sitting around the campfire vibe. And so I wanted to use a Canadian whiskey, hot milk with dark chocolate powder, maple syrup, cold brew coffee. And that is a big oversized toasted marshmallow dropped on top with some grated, just a toasted giant marshmallow. So once again, it's hot, it's warming, it's quite naughty. It's the ultimate boozy hot chocolate with a spike of coffee in it. You will have seen that I've mentioned cold brew coffee in quite a lot of these, and I'm going to explain a bit more on that specifically at the end. Typically espresso is the most popular style, out here in Europe and out in New Zealand anyway. But we're seeing a huge movement towards using cold brew coffees, particularly in bars and restaurants, because you can get consistency, speed, and it's quite shelf stable. With the right coffee when it's refrigerated, it can last around at least 2 weeks in the refrigerator. Whereas espresso, because of the extraction, it starts to oxidize and change flavor. So you need to make it fresh each time. I'll explain a little more later on. One more hot drink, then we can maybe do a question stop. Moving on to the next slide is the whiskey pour over, and this is quite, I guess, probably a little bit unexpected as well. Really, really delicious. So I'm a fan of pour over coffee. This is a V60 style, where you typically have 16 grams of ground coffee, and you pour your boiling water through the coffee into a little jug, and then you sit there and sip. And it's a lighter style coffee than say espresso or Americanos. But what I've done here is, before the water's poured in that bottom jug, you see I love my whiskey. We've got bourbon whiskey and maple syrup again. I picked all the drinks with maple syrup and for this presentation today. That's quite strange. So whiskey and a sweetener in the bottom. Hot water goes through the coffee, mixes with the spirit and the maple, swirl it in the jug, pour it out for 2 people. I actually garnish this with an orange twist and a cinnamon stick, and warm, just lovely warming boozy coffee without the creaminess that you would expect from a creamy coffee or a creamy drink. And also this coffee is quite light, so it's not really punchy. It allows the spirit to shine through a bit more.
So we have a few questions that have come in, not that many actually. So more, there's more of my mouth is watering just looking at that. Need Kentucky coffee in the snow ASAP. And then we on Tuesday had a local barista that's won a bunch of coffee awards come in and talk about making coffee at home and how to brew the perfect cup, almost in preparation for this class happening.
Right.
So I feel like we've got some people that are ready to go with their newfound coffee skills and ready to mix them into cocktails. All of those, the last set of cocktails looked unbelievably delicious.
Oh, good. Thank you. That's great timing. And I don't want to keep shamelessly plugging my book, but in there we've got a chapter on different brewing techniques. So it tells you how to pick the right coffee for your taste buds. Tells you how to make V60 or Chemex coffee, making good espresso and frothing good milk, using the Mocha pot, different styles. So there's some tips in there if anyone does want to get that at any point.
Awesome. What type of spirits have you found that may not work well with coffee? Have you tried mezcal or tequila? I mean, there's some obvious things that aren't going to work well with coffee, or maybe I think they're obvious. I don't know. You tell us.
Yeah, that's good question. I think there's always a way to make things work. It depends on the drink that you're targeting. Gin can be quite difficult. The green, piney pungency of juniper can clash at times, but with the right coffee and things, I've had some delicious gin coffee drinks as well. Mezcal, I struggle quite a bit with smoky spirits. So smoky whiskeys and mezcal can make the drink taste like the coffee's been burnt. So and when the burnt coffee or over extracted coffee's not so delicious. So it can be really hard to get that balance really well. So I often stay away from smoky spirits. And mezcal as well there's so many different styles and flavors. I love a mezcal Negroni with a little touch of coffee can work really well. But it is very, very, very tricky. I wouldn't just throw it in an Espresso Martini necessarily and expect it's going to work first time.
Is the Cafe Negroni not made with gin?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
There's a few. I mean, coffee Negronis are definitely becoming quite popular at the moment. And yeah, I think it can work really well. I guess the vermouth and the Campari play a really nice role with the drink as well. So yeah, coffee Negroni can be super tasty.
And what do you drink when you're just relaxing at home? What's your favorite go-to coffee drink?
Good question. Drink a lot at home these days. I'm a coffee first thing when I get up in the morning, 100%, and I'm generally having I don't have an espresso machine at home. Sadly, I used to. Normally with my job, I'm on the road so much that I never needed one. So I'm doing pour over coffee, so V60 or a cafetiere, sometimes a mocha pot, depending. But I also have it's called an espresso arancino, which is a little device which whisks milk and heats it. Mm-hmm. And I'll often make a coffee drink. You can either turn it on heating mode or just a neutral mode. And I'll throw coffee, a sweetener, a spirit, and milk. So basically that milk and cookies thing, I'll throw it all in that. And it works great either hot or at room temperature. And I'll pour it over ice. And it's just my easy go-to sort of coffee drinks, really.
Sounds delicious.
I'm going to be making you 2 drinks at the end, and both of which I make at home as well.
All right.
Cool.
I think that wraps up the questions so far. If you're watching at home, keep sending those questions our way.
All right, we'll go back into the slides. And the next drink I have up here is a coffee and tonic. So this is a bit of a phenomenon that kicked off, I don't know, 5 years ago, I guess, with the rise in popularity of cold brew coffee. People started experimenting with different things and realized that it's not as it doesn't have the same bitterness and tannins that you would get with, say, espresso. So I don't know, someone poured it with over ice with tonic water and realized, wow, it made it really effervescent, really fresh. It balanced out, nice bit of bitterness there, and put a touch of citrus in there to brighten it up. And hey, why not throw some gin in there as well? And with the right cold brew coffee, this drink is an awesome little number to have in the summer. So I'll definitely be enjoying a few of these once the weather warms up and we get into summer. So this recipe here, 45 mils of gin, so what's that, 1.5 ounces, cold brew coffee, tonic water, and I've used a grapefruit zest on there. Really, really clean, simple, fresh, but maybe quite unexpected as a coffee cocktail. Next slide, next drink is the Cafe Baller. And this is so simple, but such a goodie. The idea for this came around when I was making the book. I would make these huge batches of cold brew for doing different experimentations on drinks. And sometime, if I'm doing, I'd have different batches going of different, from different countries and things. And sometimes it's before they start to spoil. Like I couldn't give it away, or I couldn't drink, they can only drink so much coffee. So I started freezing it and freeze the cold brew coffee. It obviously locks in the flavor, keeps it shelf stable. And then I started testing putting it with different spirits. And, taking generally a dark spirit, I've just put their spirit. So you can even drop a coffee ice ball into vanilla vodka if you like vanilla vodka and the potency. And then you just get the coffee dissolving, diluting into the drink. Or whether it's bourbon, rum, whiskey, explore. I recommend exploring. Really, really simple, but cool little serve. A little orange twist there as well. Gives you those citrus notes. Lovely. Next drink we're going to be looking at is the Cinnamon Toast Crunch White Russian. And this was just inspired by, so this is, we're in the category of built drinks now. This is my take on a White Russian. This came around, I'm not the first to use cereal milk in cocktails and in the culinary world, but, this is my absolute favorite cereal. You can't get it often in many countries outside of the US, but I was in Dubai when I wrote this book. And just the milk in the end of a bowl of Cinnamon Toast Crunch cereal, wow, mind-blowing. So I just used that milk as the milk element in a White Russian. And there I've got, just a coffee liqueur and a vanilla vodka. Absolutely delicious. Really, really simple, but you're bringing the flavor of that cereal. And you can use other cereals, honey nut cornflakes or Cocoa Pops. Simple drink. I wouldn't serve it to someone out of my bowl of cereal I've eaten, but we'll just take a large bowl. I think on there I've got the ratio of cereal to milk. Let it sit, strain it out, or eat the cereal separately and save that milk, and you're going to get a delicious drink. Perfect garnish on the top there as well. The last drink in the built category, moving on to the next slide, is a little bit of a mind bender. This is a crazy one I called Death by Caffeine. And this is a drink that I designed for a cocktail competition. It got some really great results. And then when I moved to a bar, I ended up putting it on the menu. And what I did was I spoke to a local chocolatier, got them to make these handcrafted chocolate spheres, salted dark chocolate. And to serve it, we had the cocktail pre-mixed in a bottle in the refrigerator. So we'd bring the sphere out, flick it with a blowtorch, put this magic dust all over the top, strain the cocktail inside it, top it with a little foam, Straw goes in, sits on a ramekin with cold brew coffee and dry ice. I'm just going to give you this coffee aroma, and comes out to the table. You lift the cloche, the dry ice aroma comes across your lap, and you drink the cocktail. When it's all gone, you crack it with a spoon and eat the chocolate. And what have I put on this? I haven't seen this one for a while. Yeah, I mean, you can put other things in that little ramekin in the bottom as well. You can put a spirit, so you can drink the spirit with the as you eat the chocolate. Yeah, pretty crazy and out there, but it just shows to the extremes you can go and the fun you can have with coffee cocktails. Moving on to the next one, got about 6, 7, 8 more drinks. Next drink here is the coffee marmalade old fashioned. Old fashioned, such a great drink. Love a good old fashioned. With this one here, what we've done is taken some of my favorite flavors. So used an orange marmalade. We've got a 3 coffee beans, coffee bitters, and you basically crush the coffee beans in the bottom of a mixing glass, add the bitters, starts absorbing, a little dash of chocolate bitters there as well. Add the whiskey, add the marmalade, give it a really good stir, stir it with ice, and then strain it over ice, and you've got chocolate, orange, coffee, whiskey, old-fashioned. I might even have one of these. This might be my drink after I get offline here today. So you don't have to use marmalade, of course. That was just, I like that bitter orange. You could stick to just, regular sugar. You could use maple syrup here again, or agave nectar even. And it's just bringing a subtle touch of coffee into the equation here. Many coffee old fashions I've seen even just have a little splash of coffee liqueur dropped inside, and you might drop the sugar level that you use. So you're just adding a little twist of coffee just to give you more complexity. It's not all about the coffee. Cool. Next drink is the Cafe Negroni. This is one of my versions. I've made probably over 50 different Cafe Negronis over the years now. This one actually uses Geneva, the Dutch, precursor of gin. But you can use, your classic gin. This one used a coffee washed sweet vermouth. So that's where you infuse the coffee into sweet vermouth, or you could infuse it into the gin, or you could infuse it into the bitter element, the Campari, or in this case, Rinomato. But I found I wanted to do a lot of drinks that use red vermouth. So I thought if I infuse that coffee into the vermouth, it just becomes another botanical, and I could use it in this. I could use it in Manhattans. I could use it in the next drink I'm going to show you. It just meant I had that pre-infused vermouth, and it just really added this lovely, a subtle touch of coffee. Once again, it's not trying to overpower. And I've got in the book, actually, there's a couple of different variations on this drink as well. The next serve, this is a real American classic, the Vucate. If you haven't had a Vucate, highly recommend it. It's an amazing drink, obviously out of New Orleans. And this is my version, simply rye whiskey, cognac, coffee wash vermouth, a little touch of Benedictine, which is like a honeyed herbal liqueur, Peychaud's, and I've got some Orinoco bitters there. You can use Angostura. So complex, and the coffee and that vermouth just brings in another layer of flavor. And for me, with coffee, one of the fun things about it can also be a deterrent for many people, is the caffeine kick you get from it. So some of these drinks where it's very light, it means you're getting the flavor of coffee without necessarily having a drink that's going to keep you up all night. And others, it's going to give you that little bit of a pick-me-up. So, it can be quite nice, that little bit of invigoration. So these stirred style drinks, I think coffee works great with these darker spirits. So, I've done coffee Manhattans, and You can do barrel-aged coffee drinks. It's just a matter of finding where the coffee can slot into that classic style recipe. That's it for stirred drinks. Shall I keep going, or do you want to drop some more questions? Or
I have a couple of questions to ask. Someone wanted to know, does coffee affect the mixing attributes of a cocktail? For instance, some things like Bailey's will curdle with certain ingredients while others simply won't mix, and you'll have layers. Does coffee have similar properties?
Coffee's pretty easygoing. It would depend, obviously, on the type. A fresh espresso, you're getting that thick crema, but that'll die down. Essentially, think about coffee. It's basically flavored water. It doesn't have, essentially no calories. It won't be sweetening your drink. So there's no thickness or viscosity issues. It does have a little bit of acidity at times. So it can not necessarily, I wouldn't say curdle, but it can maybe coagulate or have a little bit of a, you might see a pouring through milk. You might see it sometimes go a little bit funky, but coffee and milk traditionally goes together so well. So no, you shouldn't have any worries with that, really. I would just think if you're using a light style coffee, then and a lot of it can dilute because it's essentially water. But yeah, no, you shouldn't have any issues in that regard.
And what is your favorite coffee liqueur? Your go-to?
I'm not sure what I'm allowed to.
You can say whatever your favorite is.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll show you in one of the later slides.
Okay, that sounds great. And then the Cafe Baller, it occurred to me, I don't know why this was so groundbreaking. Like, I'm a big fan. There's this rum cream that we have here, and the Cafe Baller and rum cream would be absolutely amazing. So as soon as we're done here, I'm going to go freeze some coffee.
Awesome. Yeah, exactly. That's it. You say rum cream. I think of Bailey's cream. I've had rum creams before, but you normally have Bailey's and ice or rum cream on ice. So a little bit of coffee in there with that.
Yeah,
so good.
Exactly. Cool. All right, let's get back to the cocktails.
Cool. All right. So moving into the next cocktail. This is a blended cocktail in a blended category here. This one's definitely a little bit naughty. I called this Netflix and Chilled. And since this was released, I think Ben and Jerry's have ripped off my name. I don't know if it's coincidence or if they're, great minds think alike, but they've now got an ice cream called Netflix and Chilled. This came around, I was writing the book one night. My wife had cooked dinner. It was my turn to come up with something for dessert. We were watching, sit on the couch and watch movies. Went to the kitchen. There wasn't enough ice cream for us both. So I took ice cream and coffee and milk and maple and bourbon and blended it all up, cream on top, crushed some biscuits over it, and sat on the couch. And I was in the good books after that one. It was a delicious dessert for having at home, just, getting inventive out of what was in the refrigerator. Looks really cool, very much an Instagrammable sort of cocktail. Serves it literally in the pot there like that. Meant less dishes, basically. So, but yes, it's definitely a little bit of fun. I love blended coffee drinks, and I'm sure, probably guilty secret. I don't know. Well, you guys in Seattle and Starbucks and frappes and that, I don't know if they're still cool anymore, but on a hot day, cold frosty coffee is delicious. Next drink, quite different, blended, but and frosty. There's no dairy in this drink. Obviously, when you blend coffee, you get that lovely aeration. It creates that crema. And I lived in Italy at one point, and I love the bitter aperitivos out there, and I love drinking, Fernet Branca and Amaros. And this one, I wanted to take some sweet, some bitter, and some coffee, and blend it all together. So we've got a Marsala wine, which is this is a sweet fortified red wine, absolutely delicious, like a red dessert wine, a bit like a sweet port. We've got Ramazzotti, which is sort of a bitter cherry liqueur. Fernet Branca, tiny little touch there, gives you that intense bitter note, earthy note, herbal note. Cold brew coffee and Amarena cherry syrup, blended with crushed ice, bitter, sweet, cooling frappe. It's like an adult's Italian frappe. If you don't have, those are quite an array of weird and wonderful, obscure ingredients. You can totally improvise and do your own version on any of these drinks, actually. Coffee, I think, is quite forgiving. And it's just, if you take a sweet ingredient out, put another sweet ingredient in, and vice versa with the other ingredients. But if you're in a bar with a cool bartender who loves doing interesting things for his guests and they've got some great spirits like that, then challenge them to make one of these. Next drink is the Cafe Calada. And this is a goodie. This is my take on, obviously, the Pina Colada. We've got gold rum as opposed to white rum. We've got cold brew coffee, a touch of coconut rum, spiced syrup. I put the recipe there. It's in the book, but basically sort of Caribbean spices, crushed ice, chocolate, bitters. So we're switching out the pineapple for coffee. There's no cream in it. There's no creaminess, but that you get that from blending the coffee. When you blend coffee with those ingredients, it gives you this lovely fluffy, foamy texture. This is just great in a normal glass, but obviously, in a book like this, you want to bring a bit of wow factor. So this is a cup or a mug, essentially, a round one, and sprayed with chocolate, and that is a chocolate coconut crust on the outside, and then it's got freshly grated white coconut sitting on the top, and it's coffee, little touch of chocolate, spices, coconut. Wow, such a good drink. Cafe Calada, coffee pina coladas. Challenge your bartenders, or give it a crack yourself. Such a cool drink. Next drink I've put here, the Cafe Nitro. Now this drink I love. You probably gather that I love cold brew coffee. I love Nitro cold brew on draft, and we've seen sort of a bit of a boom of coffee cocktails on tap in various places around the world. If you haven't got a nice big draft system and a Cornelius keg under the bar and whatnot, these little devices are great. And if I do house parties, or if I'm doing a guest shift at a bar, I'll do this. That's you guys don't use liters, do you? I don't know in gallons, but it's about 2.5 liters. This is essentially a Nitro Espresso Martini, but we've got a little touch of orange and blackberry, and pimento dram is like a allspice liqueur. So pimento liqueur, lovely spice. Instead of a martini glass, we've just gone a little sort of, we use those as coffee cups in New Zealand for small coffees, and beautiful velvety texture, orange, blackberries, spices, little dust on the top. Oh, I could normally down a few of those on a hot day. Really cool drink. So that is almost about it for cocktail recipes. As I say, there's over 75 in the book. I just wanted to give you a bit of a taste of the variety that's out there. In a minute, I'm going to mix you two drinks very quickly. But we'll skip on to the next slide. And I just wanted to touch on something else. And this is just some quick examples of pre-bottled cocktails. So here we've got a cold fashioned, which is a cold brew coffee, whiskey, old fashioned in a bottle by Mr. Black. This is a very famous bar in London called Quaint, and it's their coffee Negroni with Tanqueray 10, vermouth, coffee aroma. Pull it out of the fridge, pour it over ice, delicious. And this one here is another whiskey Espresso Martini. And even guys like Calada are now getting into the act with canned drinks. So there's another style and exciting category of them. And if you love coffee cocktails and can't always be asked making your own, look out for some bottled versions. I'm sure you've got things out there in the US you can pick up. And the next slide, this answers a question that you were asking about my favorite coffee liqueur. I don't know if you can get this in the States or not. On the right there, you've got Mr. Black. They are a really great brand. And that is, I think that's a single origin release that they've done. And then in the center there, Aluna. This is a coffee. This is a coconut rum coffee liqueur with a touch of cacao and black cardamom. It is awesome. I do actually have a bottle here. It's basically that coffee Calada drink that I had on the menu earlier that hasn't been blended. It is 25% alcohol, lovely balance of flavors, nice and complex, really, really tasty. I don't know what you guys have got available out there, but just look for a brand that is using real coffee and is clearly putting some care and attention into it. Moving on, next slide. I'm not going to lag on this, but you can actually really easily make your own, whether it's making a coffee liqueur, basically, using a good quality concentrated cold brew coffee with a spirit and balanced with sugar. I put a pinch of salt there because it enhances flavors. Really, really easy to make, and you can bottle it, keep it in the fridge, pull it out whenever you want. It's just getting that balance of flavors right, and it's almost equal parts. You can see I've listed there. And then another good option is infusing coffee into spirits. So I always recommend grinding the coffee in a really coarse grind. If you're going to test something, you don't want to ruin the spirit, so just take it easy, do it in small dose first, find out the right ratio to the flavor of the spirit you're using, strain it really well, and you've got your own coffee flavored spirit. It's actually pretty easy. Next slide. I told you I was going to talk you through cold brew coffee. So there's different types of cold brew. Often there's the stuff that's ready to drink. It's quite diluted. It's really refreshing, quite light. But what I'm generally talking about here is concentrated cold brew coffee. And this is where you've got a high ratio of coffee to water. You infuse it overnight, anywhere from 12. I'm generally going for 18 hours at a 5-to-1 ratio. So so what do I use? 1 kilo of coffee to 200 mils of water. Is that right? 1 liter of water to 200 grams of coffee. Haven't made one in a while. And it gives you a really intense, concentrated coffee, draws out all the flavors, not too bitter, but that'll last in the refrigerator for 2 weeks. It can basically replace espresso. Of course, you can doing cold brew with different styles of coffee is going to give you different flavors and different results. It's really easy to make. This device in the center there, the large white thing, is called a toddy cold brew coffee extractor. It's designed exactly for this purpose. But if you don't have that, I'm going to hold this up in front of screen now, if you can see that. Your good old cafetiere. It's in the bottom corner of the screen as well. This can do a decent job. You just need coarsely ground coffee. You can even buy it pre-ground from the supermarket, but you want it really nice and coarse, as you can see there. Put it in a 5-to-1 ratio. Leave that for 18 hours, then strain it out. Using this sort of filter, you'll get, it's a little bit coarse, so I often put it through a paper filter as well to get it really nice and clean. But you could use the pictures up there is called a super bag or a straining bag, or a muslin cloth can work really well, just doing it from a jar. And it just means you've got coffee ready to go in the refrigerator, at any time, really, and really handy for whether it's for cocktails or just for drinking on its own. The last slide, guys, that is basically it for me showcasing the contents of the book, but I'm going to do a little live demo for you next if I've got time. But yeah, I just said there, obviously I've mentioned already the book's available, links in the description. I am at Drinks Geek on Instagram, and you know, if you're experimenting and got questions, feel free to hit me up there. I'm always happy to help. And you'll get other inspiration and ideas from my page there.
All right, so we have one more question, and I know the person that posted this question, and I'm almost afraid to ask it because I think it might lead me down the road of drinking coffee shots when the bars open back up. But are there any good coffee-based shots that we should know about?
Good question. So I'm trying to boil my kettle quietly. It's quite loud for the next drink. Coffee shots, yes. Well, the first coffee shot or cocktail I ever had was a B52. So Kahlua, Bailey's, Grand Marnier on top, and I had it. I was a 17-year-old bartender, not of the legal drinking age, and I was out the back doing glasses, and someone brought me this hot. They'd set it on fire, and it had been confiscated from someone at the bar who'd ordered it that was too intoxicated to have it. So they brought them out, downed it, and I was like, wow, hot coffee and orange and Bailey's, wow. So that's probably definitely the most famous one. There's one that's quite popular in sort of Sweden. It's called a hot shot, and it's got a hot coffee, Galliano, and something else, maybe coffee liqueur in it as well. And it's taken in the winter months to warm up. Coffee and Galliano, really, really tasty. But yeah, I guess I've been to some great bars that might do an espresso martini style drink, shaken, poured into shot glasses, and then brought out on a tray. So instead of making one martini, you're making 3 shots or 4 small shots and bring it to a table. It's a nice little, hey guys, here's a little something to perk you up for your night. And so you could take any recipe like that really and do it in that form. Obviously, it's going to be weaker than doing a straight shot, but it's nice having that bit of a boozy coffee kick.
Great. All right, should we get into actually demonstrating the cocktails?
Cool.
Are we ready?
I'm going to just mute for a second, just boil my kettle quickly and just a couple of things.
Okay, so while the kettle's boiling, does anybody have any questions that they'd like answered? We'll do the Q&A now if there's any other questions that didn't make it into the chat yet. I think we've answered all of the questions. If you were, honestly, I feel like the bars in Seattle right now should be doing coffee cocktails, like warm coffee cocktails for everybody that's sitting outside. Next question that came in, what are the most preferred coffee beans? I'm not sure if you heard that question, but while you're doing that, if you saw the discussion that we had on Tuesday about making coffee, it seems like that's a highly debated topic on which coffee beans to start with, and because it comes down to personal preference. But JC, what coffee beans are your go-tos?
Yeah, that's a good question. Everybody's different, and the difficulty is living in different places. We all have access to different things. My coffee suppliers in England is going to be so different to whatever you guys have. Typically for things like espresso martinis and Irish coffees, you go for that classic Italian darker style roast, a nice dark roasted bean. That's going to give you chocolate flavors, quite simple things. And it's just that traditional flavor that you expect with those traditional cocktails. Going into more creative things, I just say, I always go Arabica, 100% Arabica. I've never really had a Robusta that I've really enjoyed. When I've done cuppings and tastings, I love the complexity and the delicate nature of an Arabica. And then smell the coffee before you go and buy it. Buy it from a cafe and speak to the barista and go, I'm going to be brewing it in this style. I'm going to be doing it this way. What would you suggest? Generally, bartenders and baristas love to chat and talk about these things. So to ask them or say, I want something quite rich and chocolatey, or I want something a little bit more with acidity, or I want something quite floral or berries. Just I guess either read the notes and ask and find what you like. We're all so different. It's about finding what you like.
Great.
Cool. Right, let's make some cocktails. Kettle has boiled. This drink I'm going to make is a twist on an Irish coffee. It is a drink that I make for 2 people at once. So it's good if my wife and I want to have a cocktail together or a coffee together. I can make it really, really simple in 1 jug, and it does it for 2 people. So what I'm doing is in a cafetiere, and I've got my scale here. I tend to weigh all my coffee. I've got 20 grams of coarsely ground coffee. This is a Colombian coffee. No, this is a Guatemalan coffee. It's a medium dark roast. It has got, this has really got this sort of cassis, creme de cassis, black currant, blackberry notes in it, along with sort of chocolate, vanilla, and spice characteristics. I'm going to drop my 20 grams into there. And then I'm going to use 200 grams of boiling water, or 200 mils essentially. And this ratio is quite strong. It's stronger than I would normally do a cafetiere. I would normally do it lighter, but I want strong character like an espresso. So I reset my scale. Smells amazing. 200 grams. Now, I'm going to place this on top. I'm going to put this to the side because I want this to, I've got a timer. I want this to infuse for about 4 to 5 minutes. So I'm going to push that to the side, and I'll recap you on that. And we're going to work on another drink, the second drink. So this is Cafe Negroni done in a slightly different way. As I mentioned, I like filter coffee. I've got a setup, V60 setup here. So I've got a paper filter. I've already rinsed this with water just to remove any paper fibers. I've got a rocks glass. It's been sitting in the freezer with a couple of chunks of nice clear ice in there. Filter sits on top. I'm going to put 10 grams of very coarsely ground coffee. This is like brown sugar, chunky brown sugar. It is quite coarse. This is not the ratio I have for my morning coffee, but I want this to be quite a quick flash infusion. So by having a coarsely ground coffee, the liquid's going to pass through quite quickly. And the cocktail, it's pre-batched. So I could now do my gin, Campari, vermouth, stir it, get about 20 mils of dilution, and then pour it through this. But, smart bartender, will often pre-batch. And so I pre-batched this earlier. It's been stirred over ice. It's cold. It's diluted. It's going to make this process really nice and quick. I've done 30. I've done 1 ounce of each. with 20 mils of dilution. So that is 110 mils. Don't know what that is in ounces, sorry. And I'm literally pouring that straight over that coffee, and it's going to filter through quite quickly. I'll do it in a bit of a circular motion. I want to saturate all the grinds. And this is going to give me a flash infusion. It means I don't have to sit it in on the shelf and let it infuse, but it's quite a nice little process. You can see it dripping through there. And that's going to take on, this one is, this is a Ethiopian coffee, and it's a little bit more floral. It's got sort of notes of jasmine, honey, and this is going to work really well with the flavors within that Negroni. So that is draining through there nicely. It needs a little bit of time for the last little bit, otherwise you might get some wastage. So while that's doing that, I'll pull this back over here. We're about 3 minutes in. That's going to be fine. I'd normally wait about 4.5 minutes. What I'm going to do is pop this open. Rather than straining this out and put it into a mixing glass or a cocktail shaker or whatever, I'm going to brew it all in here. So this is my twist on an Irish coffee, but we're going to be using rum. So I've got a lovely gold rum here. And I'm going to use 1.5 ounces. But this is actually, sorry, this is for 2 serves. So this is for 2. My wife's going to have one of these. So I'm going to be doing 3 ounces. And I'm going to do a 1/2 ounce of coconut rum. And this coconut, oh, if I can open it, is, as I said, you know, coconut can work really well with coffee. Coconut and rum, great natural combination. Just going to use a 1/2 ounce for both drinks, covering in total there. We need a little bit of sweetness, so I've got a Demerara sugar syrup. This is, I'm going to use 3/4 of an ounce. Now with an Irish coffee, you're normally using sugar. Whiskey goes in the glass, and the whiskey goes in the glass first. You put some boiling water in there to dissolve the sugar and to blend those ingredients together. And then you fill it with the coffee, espresso coffee, so I'd make it, and then you layer it with cream. But I'm building it all in the cafetiere. Don't have the espresso machine on the go. And I don't even need to stir it. I'm just going to give it a really good mix up here. Shake. I've got a preheated glass, nice and warm. And I'm just going to plunge that down, pour till I'm just off the rim. That's for the second serve. The wife gets to enjoy that one soon. And then here, instead of just using a regular cream, what's better than cream? Ice cream. So this is a coconut and strawberry ice cream. So it's non-dairy. It's using coconut, and the coconut is going to match in with the rum and the coconut liqueur. And then we've got this lovely touch of strawberry, which is going to go with the berry notes of the coffee. I haven't tested this one, so I'm hoping it's going to float. Let's see. They normally do. Oh, this one maybe not. That might be a bit of a fail. Depending on the ice cream you use, I've never tried with this specific ice cream. It'll generally float on top. This one looks like it's going to be all mixed in. I'll give it a wee stir. Well, that's a bit of a fail on camera, but various ice creams I've used generally tend to work, and it just gives you this lovely richness compared to just using cream. Garnish-wise on this, I've got a little toasted coconut And this is a freeze-dried strawberry powder. It's a little bit of a shame I didn't get the nice layer for you today. Should have tested that one. But yeah, we've got rum, coconut, vanilla, sort of flavors, spice, berries. Oh, and absolutely delicious. I'm going to set that aside. And my Negroni is now ready. So 2 cocktails on the go there. It's all drained through really nicely. You can see here, beautiful color. I can smell on the nose, it smells like a Negroni, but you've got that little touch of coffee. And I'm going to use a little grapefruit zest here just to help brighten that up. Press those oils over the top. Drop that in the side. And that is just a little bit of a different version of the Cafe Negroni.
Both of those look beyond delicious.
Oh, that is good. Oh, I'm a bit disappointed. I should have tested this before I filmed it and then tested that particular cream, but it is absolutely delicious.
I bet it's delicious, even though it didn't give you the Instagrammable moment that you were looking for. Somebody asked if half and half is a good substitute in the milk and cookies. Will it give it a thicker mouthfeel?
Absolutely, yeah. Half and half will work great in that. I get a bit confused with what you guys call cream. Like we call milk out here, and then cream is really thick, and we've got double cream and we've got whipping cream. With that particular drink, you just don't want the addition of like half and half will be great because you've got the thickness and you've got the light side sort of well balanced. I don't think you want to just use a thick, heavy cream because it'll be too cloying. But yeah, half and half would be great in that for sure.
They said that they actually answered their own question. Half and half shaken with ice in a bottle is awesome. So yeah. And somebody would like us to FedEx some of the cocktails. So we'll do our best to make that happen. Before we head out, I feel like we've covered a lot of ground. We've asked questions along the way. Do you have any parting advice for everybody that's watching today?
Yeah. I mean, a couple of things. Cocktails are all about fun. So, it's about enjoying the process. What makes it more enjoyable is being quite organized. If you're making drinks at home, get everything set up nicely, nice and tidy. I tend to put my ingredients on my right-hand side, my tools on my left, so that I can pick up, porch, put things back down in the same place. I haven't exactly done it on camera today, but try and work methodically and tidily, and it'll make the whole process a little bit easier. Pre-batching is a great way of making life easier for you. That Negroni, I could make it a liter of that and have it in the fridge and just pull it out any time, which is great. Same with old fashions. So I highly recommend that process. In terms of coffee, just find coffee that you enjoy and then, taste that, maybe even taste it alongside a spirit that you're thinking, and go from there.
Awesome. Well, JC, thank you so much for joining us today. For everybody that's watching at home, if you want to get the book, I've posted the link to pick up a copy of, you said it was how many pages?
208 pages with over 75 recipes.
Which is unbelievable. That should get me through at least 30 days. And if you are in the Seattle area and you're tuning in, Buzz Week is still happening all week long. So tomorrow's the last day, but there's different locations around town that are serving up their best and their favorite coffee cocktails. And because of the state that we're in, a lot of them are doing it to go. We've got Ascend Prime, Fremont Mischief, Ben Paris. I'm probably forgetting some, but if you go to seattlecocktailclub.com, They are all listed there under Buzzweek. And again, JC, thank you so much. JC's book is called The Art and Craft of Coffee Cocktails. We hope you learned enough to go and start experimenting with caffeine and cocktails on your own. And yeah, JC, thank you. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much. It's 11:30 at night for me now, so I'm going to be buzzing after these drinks. I'm going to beat up, but it was really cool to connect with you all. I wish you all the best. Yeah, if you've got any questions, hit me up on Instagram at DrinksGeek, and yeah, have a great evening, great weekend.
Yeah, and we will happily share that information to emails. We'll send out a recap of this to everybody that signed up for this class. So thanks again for joining us. Have a good afternoon or evening, depending on where you are.